The Manitoba government has declared a province-wide state of emergency due to the wildfire situation. This is a significant step we are taking to uphold our obligation to keep people safe. We're talking about roughly 17,000 people that we are looking to provide safety to and to prevent the loss of life. The wildfires in northern Manitoba have intensified since we gave our update this morning. Wildfire and emergency management officials have now been advised that evacuation orders have been issued for the city of Flin Flon, the communities of Pimichigamak Cree Nation, Puckatawagan Cree Nation, and the Northern Affairs community of Cross Lake. All told, we're looking at about 17,000 people in northern communities that are being evacuated from their homes over the next few hours. The majority of these folks will be coming to Winnipeg. This is the largest evacuation Manitoba will have seen in most people's living memory. For that reason, our government has triggered a province-wide state of emergency to allow us to respond to this crisis. It will provide provincial officials the ability to safely transport evacuees and to provide shelter for them. As we speak, officials are coordinating with local leaders and law enforcement to support evacuees. We're working alongside the City of Winnipeg and others who have facilities to prepare to welcome our fellow Manitobans. Earlier today, I spoke with Prime Minister Mark Carney to notify him of the state of emergency we have declared and to ask for help from the Canadian Armed Forces. The Prime Minister agreed to that request. I also had an opportunity to speak to Premier Scott Moe of Saskatchewan, and we're working together to ensure any Saskatchewan people and Manitobans who are accessing healthcare in our province and will be impacted by this disruption to healthcare will be cared for. We are already engaging with the Canadian Armed Forces in a very deep way to ensure that flights to move these thousands of people will be deployed imminently. Emergency Measures has triggered emergency alerts in Pimichigamak, Cross Lake, and Flin Flon with specific instructions about how to make your way to safety. All Manitobans should now have received an emergency alert on your phone informing you about the state of emergency being declared province-wide. And now I want to speak specifically to people in the wildfire zone. If you are in Flin Flon, please go to Winnipeg. If you are in Pimichigamak or Puckatawagan, listen to direction from your local leadership. This is a moment of fear and uncertainty. This is a moment of concern. But I want to tell you that your fellow Manitobans will welcome you. We will get through this difficult period, and we'll get through this trying period the way that we always do, by working together.
You mentioned military force there. Will the military be used then to transport everyone to Winnipeg?
The military is being called for help here because of the sheer scale of these 17,000 folks that we need to move relatively quickly. We're talking about hours instead of days to move this amount of people. And we're standing up shelter for those folks at the same time too. And that's why we've declared the state of emergency. We've put the call into the Prime Minister, and I'm happy to say that Prime Minister Mark Carney agreed with the request.
Does that start tonight?
The work has already started. In terms of flights, yeah, I would imagine, yeah, they'll be starting right away. Yeah.
Premier, when you're talking about housing people in Winnipeg, and you've talked to the City of Winnipeg, are you envisioning, are we talking arenas, community centers?
Yeah,
What are we talking?
Soccer fields, community centers, arenas, that's what we're looking at.
So cots
Yes.
in large facilities?
Yeah. Congregate shelter is a term that we use for planning inside government, but the main purpose of this announcement and the declaration of the province-wide state of emergency is that local leaders in several northern communities, both in cities like Flin Flon, but also in First Nations, have made the call that their folks need to leave their homes so that we can keep you safe. And as a result, in order to step up and to be that coordinating force so that people can get out safely, we've called on the federal government to send the Canadian Armed Forces. They are doing so. And we as the province are going to set up places for everyone to stay.
Premier, can you just maybe go in French towards what just happened? So, state of emergency, and you talked with the Premier Carney. Can you please just go through the main steps here?
Oui, aujourd'hui, nous avons déclaré un état d'urgence ici dans le Manitoba à cause des feux. Et puis, cet après-midi, j'ai parlé avec le Premier ministre du Canada, Mark Carney, pour lui demander d'assistance militaire pour cette évacuation. Et puis, il est d'accord.
Well, what message do you want to send? Quel message devez-vous envoyer aux gens justement du nord du Manitoba présentement?
Manitobans are stepping up for one another, and so I want folks to ensure that you're leaving as soon as you can with the things that you need: medication, clothing, identification. If you have access to those things quickly, make sure you got a full tank of gas. We'll be there as emergency management officials to ensure that gas stations and other resources you need to make your way to safety are going to be kept open along the way. And when you arrive at a reception center, we'll ensure that you get connected with food, with shelter, and with the resources that you need to be safe.
Is Winnipeg ready to house this many people?
We're declaring a state of emergency so that we will be ready as people arrive.
Does this mean that, will you also need additional beyond city measures, provincial measures? Like, I'm trying to understand in terms of, say, I live in an apartment. Would I need to open it up for people? Would you?
We're not asking individual Manitobans to open your doors, unless, of course, it's a close family member or a friend. Then, obviously, if you want to invite them in, please do so. This is about us quickly being able to turn, let's say, a soccer field into a shelter facility for people who are fleeing from the very serious wildfires.
You spoke, Mr. Premier, about that the fires intensified from this morning. Can you elaborate on in what nature did that happen? Was it wind change? Was it approaching these communities more closely?
Yeah, all of the above, I would say. The wind changed throughout the day. So just to give you a snapshot of what that looks like here in the legislature, mid-afternoon, we had in the Flin Flon area maybe a more positive update, and then a short time later, a very challenging update. And then as a result, the local leadership, I spoke to the mayor directly. He made the call for an immediate evacuation. That came in within the same window of time as Pimmichigamack. And then while we were contemplating this state of emergency being declared, the community of Matthias Clome also declared an evacuation.
So, Mr. Premier, is there a concern then, like, I'll just, with Flin Flon, because the notice there is telling people, take the number 10 to the paw, don't go to Tom's. So is there a concern that...
Come to Winnipeg. If you're in Flin Flon, come to Winnipeg.
That road could eventually be blocked and then people would be trapped in Flin Flon, they've got to leave.
Our biggest concern is that people have a place to stay tonight. And we know that if you're leaving Flin Flon and you're coming to Winnipeg, we will be able to provide for you. And so that's why we're clearly asking folks from Flin Flon to come to Winnipeg.
Are you concerned that that message might be lost when people are maybe trying to leave with their vehicle and they may not know where to go? They may not know that roads are closed. They may not know that airports are shut down.
This is why you're performing the public service of helping us get the message out.
Can you maybe come back in French? How is the city of Winnipeg preparing themselves? So you talked about soccer fields, peut-être en français?
Bien, la ville de Winnipeg est un partenaire excellent. Nous sommes vraiment proches avec eux dans un espace de coordination. Et puis, je pense qu'on verra probablement des centres communautaires ou des édifices comme ça utilisés pour sauvegarder nos voisins du Nord.
Quel message vous envoyez à la population du Manitoba en français?
C'est très important d'appuyer les autres maintenant. On peut avoir aucun feu. On devrait pas rendre la situation plus pire. Et quand le gouvernement, soit local ou provincial, vous demande pour aide, c'est le temps de participer.
And just to confirm, so it's 17,000 people that needs to be evacuated right now, right?
Correct.
Premier Kinew, I realize that things are changing day by day, hour by hour with this, but do you have an idea of how long people might be displaced from their homes?
I think it would be too soon to say. The main thing is that people need to get out. If you've heard from your local leadership, whether that's a chief and council on a First Nation, or whether you've heard from your mayor and council in a city or town, it is time to leave, then you need to follow that advice.
In terms of Pimmichikamak and Pataskawagan, you're saying they have to listen to local leadership, so it's their decision on where their residents will go?
Most likely people would be coming to Winnipeg.
But that's not a provincial decision, right? That's
Yeah, we respect the First Nations government's decision-making there.
Last week when, well, you know, a bit ago, just now in Lactobani, and those people are still coming back to their homes, and as we're learning today, the situation there has bettered, but we saw a community reeling really truly from the loss of 2 people.
Yeah.
A rarity in Canada in the way that it happens in that way. Like, we don't see those kind of losses. I guess I'm trying to understand also, in a situation like this where we're now seeing a provincial state of emergency, are those things people should be prepared to expect? Is there sort of mental health support that you could talk about, like things like that, of that nature, which can help people as they're watching this news unfold? So many people know people that live up there.
We have called this province-wide state of emergency to keep people safe and to prevent the loss of life. I was very moved to speak to the family members of the folks that we did lose in the Lactobani area, and I continue to wish them well and offer my support. That does loom large as we make our way through this whole wildfire season in Manitoba. The particular decision to declare a state of emergency today is really about having us the ability, when an official needs to open up shelter space, that they can move quickly. We're getting the assistance from the federal government when it comes to Canadian Armed Forces transportation. We have a great participation both with the Manitoba Wildfire Service, Office of the Fire Commissioner, and other provinces helping to fight the blaze. And now we're declaring the state of emergency to ensure that as these 17,000 fellow Manitobans leave their homes, we're going to be able to provide them a place to stay during their time of need.
For those people coming to Winnipeg, Mr. Premier, as you say, come to Winnipeg, who do I contact? What do I do once I get here? I think 211 was one of the things mentioned.
That's right. So the various communities affected, you should have received on your phones specific emergency alerts tailored to your region that will have information about what to do. But yes, 211 is active during this wildfire season as a resource for Manitobans to access province-wide.
just a bit more on the military aircraft.
Yeah.
Are they landing in Flin Flon? Are they going into the First Nation communities?
So, yeah, that will be the plan. Again, well, the only reason I hedge there is that the airport for Flin Flon is actually in Baker Narrows, so it's a little drive out of town. But Pimmichikamak, Norway House have airports, and I expect that we'll be using both of them over the course of this operation to move people.
Were they Hercules aircraft or helicopters?
The specific aircraft, we'll be able to share details as we move through the planning process with the Canadian Armed Forces. But yes, I think that's the type of large craft we'd be thinking of.
Premier, when you spoke with the Prime Minister, can you tell us a little bit about what that conversation looked like? You know, this is a pretty big deal for the country too, right? I imagine you're...
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you know, I thank the Prime Minister for being responsive and available to our request. I provided him with an update. I said, we're declaring a state of emergency. We need to move. At the time, it was 15,000 people. Now it's 17,000 people since we've spoken. And here are some of the specific details. And we need the CAF help to be able to transport people to safety. And so he agreed right away, very amenable to our request, and just shared a bit about how he's going to follow up on his end. So thank the Prime Minister and the federal government for their partnership on this. And I just want to send a message to Manitobans. If you live in Northern City, if you live in a First Nation, if you live in a Northern Affairs community, all of your governments are working together with your best interests in mind. We want to keep you safe. We will make sure that you have a place to stay. So please listen to the advice that is being provided about making your way to safety. Help is coming. For those who can oversee their own evacuation by your own private vehicles and can do that safely, please do so, following the advice of your local leadership. And the province and the feds are here to step up as well.
When is the hope to have the evacuation done by? As soon as possible, obviously, but
Yeah.
do you have an idea?
I think the only thing I would say at this point, just as a specific detail for your stories, is that the initial order of the state of emergency will be in effect for 30 days. But when we're talking about people wanting to return home, I know people would want to do so as soon as it's safe for that to happen.
Is this 17,500 people just from the First Nations?
No,
or
that includes Flin Flon. Yeah, so Flin Flon, like maybe 5,000 people in the city proper, and then you have the cottage areas and I guess other homes outside of the city. So maybe about 6,000 people in that region. And then, yeah, there's Northern Affairs communities in that number as well too. And then those First Nations that I mentioned.
Just more on the aircraft, MKO said that Pimicikamak Airport wasn't operational, so is there a chance that we can't get air?
Yeah, I mean, that's when the conversation, because Norway House is relatively close to Pimicikamak, so that's when the conversation between those. And I would just say listen to your local leadership, your local officials about how to make your way to safety. As we stand right now, a situation might change. So I don't want to get too prescriptive about it other than to say listen to the emergency alerts and listen to local leadership who will have the most recent information about how to fly or make your way to safety.
You have crews in, firefighting crews in from various provinces.
Yes.
Does Manitoba need more help?
Yes. First of all, I want to say thank you. We've seen New Brunswick, Alberta, British Columbia help with firefighters. We've seen managerial support from Prince Edward Island. We've seen tanker support from Ontario and Saskatchewan. And we do have a request out there for more firefighting assistance. So as the situation continues to be very serious, and we're now in a state of emergency in Manitoba, as other provinces can continue to help, we are very, very appreciative.
Was that part of the conversation with Prime Minister Carney about more help? Like, could there be more?
The federal government has been good with providing firefighters. They've provided firefighters through Parks Canada, and those crews, I believe, came from Alberta. We have to keep in mind one of those Parks Canada firefighters was injured over the weekend, and so again, I thank this person for putting themselves in harm's way. It was a tree fall, I believe, that struck them. That's how serious this situation is. People are putting themselves into harm's way, risking their own lives to keep our fellow Manitobans safe. In the coming days, we'll be stepping up to provide shelter to our neighbors, to our friends from northern Manitoba, Flin Flon, Pimicikamak, Puckatawagan, other communities. And as we do so, it's important that we just ensure that there's a space for the emergency officials to do their good work.
Are some people being prioritized through the evacuations? Maybe people with medical care or seniors?
Yeah, but those priority evacuees will already have started moving over the past few days. Pimicikamak has been moving out priority 1 patients. We're talking about days now that they've been doing those transports to Winnipeg and Brandon. Flin Flon, the activity started yesterday, and that again is coordinated with Saskatchewan because you had about 14 Saskatchewan people as patients in the Flin Flon Hospital. So yes, there is prioritization when you're talking about a flight for people who may have mobility needs, may have other health issues that prevent them from evacuating in their own vehicles. And then, of course, we'll be looking at a coordinated effort for other folks.
Go to Zoom quick.
All right, Zoom.
Thank you, Premier. Yes, we have one reporter joining us on Zoom this afternoon. One question and one follow-up, and I'm going to turn it over to Aaron Sousa from the Canadian Press.
Hi, Premier. Thanks for taking our questions. Just wondering, I may have missed it, so forgive me. I'm just wondering if there's any updated number to the size of the Flin Flon fire.
Well, we can provide that number offline. In terms of the situation in Flin Flon, over the course of the afternoon, the fire and the wind conditions just hit that level where the mayor, in consultation with law enforcement, the wildfire service, the Office of the Fire Commissioner, they made the decision as local leaders to declare an immediate mandatory evacuation of Flin Flon. This happened within the same window of time that Pimicikamak moved to an evacuation stage. They were followed shortly thereafter by the Matthias Colomb Cree Nation, and then, of course, the Northern Affairs community of Cross Lake within that window as well, too. So you're talking about an afternoon in which we were hoping for the best, but the fact that we had been preparing for the worst came into play. And so those contingency plans were activated, and we're now in a situation as a province to declare a state of emergency and to ask Manitobans to do what we do so well, which is to help one another out during this difficult time.
And since you've mentioned that you've spoken with the Prime Minister and that the Prime Minister is authorizing the Canadian Armed Forces to come in to help out Manitoba, I'm wondering, have you since been in touch with other premiers about getting more help from other provinces like New Brunswick, Alberta, BC?
Yes, I spoke to Premier Scott Moe of Saskatchewan. If you know Creighton, Saskatchewan and Flin Flon, Manitoba, it's more than just being neighbors. You're talking about family. You're talking about people whose well-being is top of mind for Saskatchewan people and Manitobans. And so as our premiers of these two neighboring provinces, it was important to establish a connection and just making sure that we're taking care of our patients who are in hospital there, and we're taking care of all of our citizens. In the days to come and hours to come, we will definitely be reaching out at other levels to ensure that wildfire fighters, wildfire fighting equipment, tankers, other resources, as well as the support of the Canadian Armed Forces will be put into place to keep Manitobans safe. Their safety is our top priority. It's a very serious situation, and so we're taking the steps necessary to protect you.
That's all from Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoom.
I'm not sure if you're aware, Mr. Premier, but is this the biggest evacuation in Manitoba since the flood of the century?
I believe so, but that's why I'm hedging by saying recent memory. Yeah.
Anything else?
I guess I want to ask this question just on a human level. This is a lot for people to deal with, and I keep bringing this up for that reason because it's a lot watching a wildfire season start in Manitoba, right, in this way, where we've seen wildfires in this country. It happens every year in our living memory, but we don't see Manitoba deal with this in this way, the way we've seen Alberta last year, you know, in the way that it got. Where are we at with climate change and the way that it is impacting us, that we're seeing these types of wildfires happening in places where they wouldn't happen that way? Like, can you walk us through the sort of thing that people are now watching in their living history, right?
Where we're at with the fight against the fires is that we have conservation officers who are deployed just to provide mental health supports to wildfire fighters right now. They've been specifically trained for that. Where we're at as a province is, for the first time, it's not a fire in one region. We have fires in every region at the same time. And that is a sign of a changing climate that we are going to have to adapt to. I spoke about this with the King yesterday. And just as a person, pray for Flin Flon. Pray for Pimichigamak, pray for Matthias Colomb, pray for Cross Lake, pray for everybody in Manitoba who's out of their homes right now. Pray for our firefighters and all the first responders, that everyone comes home safe at the end of this difficult period.
We're good?
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
We'll have more to share soon.